When I got into this business, had I known this would be a pain in my ass, I'd have become a banker, I swear to God. So, what about IP networking? Important items to keep in mind. These are bullet points that I've learned. I've been at ClearCom for about 7.5 years. These are the primary things that I get phone calls on all the time. So just make note of it. These are just a few of them. First of all, keep different types of IP traffic either on different hardware or different VLANs. What does that mean? In the case of Arcadia, make sure admin and HelixNet are on one LAN port. Then you got your IPTs, ClearCom for FreeSpeak 2, on a different one. Have your video streams. If you've got video cameras, keep them on a different VLAN. And then Dante, separated as well. And then the biggest thing of all, this is the phone call that I get the most. Link local is bad. If there is one damn thing you get out of today, what is it? Repeat after me. Link local is bad. Don't do it. So what is link local? Everybody goes, well, I thought it was a DHCP address. No! It is not a DHCP address. Link local is a 169.254.blah.blah address. Bad, 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 bad. Here's the sad part. Our friends at Dante for a long time said, oh, link local's fine. Just use link local. Just put it on DHCP, use link local. Guess what? They have recently gone back, and I've seen on some documentation them go, maybe it's not so good. They've since stepped back from that. Well, here's why. A link local IP address is a network address that is valid only for communications on a local link within a subnet. Okay? It's only for a local link within that one subnet or one switch. It is, for all intents and purposes, a stateless address. And here's the cool thing about a stateless address. You could have a duplicate. The chances of having a duplicate IP address on the same network for link local are slim to none, but I've seen it where you have two devices get the same IP. So what happens with link local? What is that all about? Well, the reason, before I read that, let's think about this. What is link local? So, you get your iPhone. You connect to Wi-Fi. Well, their Wi-Fi is connected to a switch in the back room, and that switch has a DHCP server. Your phone goes and talks to the DHCP server and says, what's my IP address? Well, what if the IP address, or what if the DHCP server is non-existent? It isn't turned on. Your phone, after 30 seconds, will go, all right, I don't have an IP address. I have to have an address of some sort, so I'm just going to pick one. 169.254.5.3. That's a link local. Your phone picked that IP randomly out of a hat. And then tomorrow, when it connects to another system, it could be 169.254.3.5. Well, what if another device on the same network happens to just pick the same IP address? What if it happens to be in the same level of its algorithm? Because the algorithm is the same for all devices. It just, well, if try this and then do this one and then do this one, and it just kind of goes on down the line. You could get a duplicate IP. Here's another fascinating thing about link local that people don't realize. All routers and some switches do not, under any circumstance, forward packets with a link local source or destination address. So what does that mean? If I am a phone wanting to connect to his phone and send it information, I'm going, I need to go to this IP address. Well, the switch that's in the back room goes, well, I think that's over here, so give it a try. The switch isn't keeping track because it's a link local. It's not designed to pass traffic that's link local. Plain and simple. And the primary thing is, and it kills me when people call me and I say, hey, do you have a DHCP server? Yeah, I have DHCP server on. I said, well, what's your IP address? 169.254.blah. I go, that's not DHCP. What do you mean that's not DHCP? That's not DHCP. Link local is not DHCP. So here's how I can explain it a little bit further. Let's say last night I get a phone call from our friends at Omega and they said, hey, we had a fire. The place is burned down. But we're still going to host you. We're going to sweat it out. We're going to go to a park down the street. and we're going to do it at some pavilion. I go, okay, how are we going to tell people how to get there? Well, it's at this address, but the pavilion is like kind of down this path. I go, okay, let me shoot out an email, I'll tell everybody. Well, Google Maps knows where the address is for that park. But it doesn't know where that pavilion is. That doesn't have an address. It's just somewhere out there in the wild of that park. So I send out an email, go to this address, park your car at the corner, go down this path, turn right at this place, look for the dog that's pooping off from the corner over here, turn left, and then you'll see it at the pavilion. Guess what? Half of you will make it and the other half won't. Because half of you will be just giving up. Hey, the time has passed, it's already started, I'm going home. The other 50, or the other half of you, you're good to go. Well, that's what link local is. It's because it's a stateless address, it doesn't know where to send it. Half the packets will make it, half of them may not. It just kind of depends. And that switch, think of it like Google Maps. Well, Google Maps doesn't even know where that pavilion is. It just knows where the address is of that park. So you have to figure out the rest. That switch is Google Maps, and if the Google Map doesn't even know where that stateless address is, then it's not going to send it. It just gives up. What did I say? Link local is bad. I don't care if you're using Dante. Again, what is DHCP? Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. It is always recommended that you set up a DHCP server. I know a lot of us in this room like to have static IPs, because static IPs means that you know where something is and what it is. Fine, go have fun. Personally, I hate setting up static IPs. I feel like it's a waste of my time. Because at the end of the day, a DHCP server will always ensure that nothing else has a duplicate IP. You could screw up if you set up static. Another trick that I have done, because these IPTs do have 2 IP addresses, I have gone in and said, all right, turn on the DHCP, I'll let them get the IP address, but then I go in and change it to static and I just keep the IP address that the DHCP server gave it, which means I don't have any more duplicates on any other IPTs throughout the system. Pick whatever you want, 192.168, 10.50.1, I don't care. The only catch, though, is if you use Luminex. And I like Luminex. They're expensive switches, but they seem to be bulletproof. They generally, I don't think any of the new ones, maybe somebody here has Luminex? Yeah.
We have the 27s and the 30s.
They don't have DHCP servers. Do you have any that have?
I use DHCP servers, so I'm not sure.
Okay, oh, he's a static guy. Oh. Again, that's just not my preference, but yeah, I get what you're doing. So Luminex does not have DHCP servers. Here's a trick, though. On my laptop, you can actually turn on a DHCP server. There's software out there that you can turn on your PC and it'll dish out the IP addresses. So that could be one way. Just be careful going and connecting to another network with said DHCP server, because you could really screw some stuff up. So just be careful. As far as AES67 goes, quick question. Did you know that Dante is AES67 audio? Yeah, I see some head shakes, but I don't see a lot of head shakes. I don't think many people realize that. Dante was really smart back in the day, and they said, hey, I got this really cool audio codec that's low latency, high quality. I'm going to use that, but I'm going to just forget the AES67 labeling. I'm just going to put the Dante Audinate label around it, and I'm going to make it easy for people to set up streams. And that's how Dante came about and why they're so popular. It's using AES67 though. Also, we mentioned it earlier, wrote it down, PTP. All AES67 traffic uses PTP, or Precision Time Protocol, to synchronize the clocks and provide proper high-quality audio with low latency. That is a requirement of any AES67 device. But it's very important that you keep AES67 audio on a different VLAN or switch. And never put FreeSpeak 2, FreeSpeak Edge on the same hardware. You could do it, but it's highly recommended, I should say, to not put IPTs on the same switch or hardware as Dante. I'll dig into that here in a second on why that is. You could put it on separate VLANs at a minimum, But be prepared. You could run into problems, and I'll explain why. Here's why. Dante uses a thing called PTP version 1, and everybody else in the entire world uses version 2. Those are two different clocks. Yeah, precision time protocol is what it is, but they are two different clocks. So here's the problem. When you look at a network switch, it has a, if you look at a packet, an IP packet, it's got a header, it's got the traffic, TCP, UDP, it's got all these different things within a packet. Well, within these packets is your timing, the PTP timing. Well, there's only so much room in a packet for the timing. They don't give you unlimited space. The packet can only be so big. So you eventually run out of space if you have two clocks going down the same hardware. Now, if you have two different VLANs, one with PTP version 1 and one with PTP version 2, generally speaking, that switch will do fine. What we have seen, though, a problem with is when you trunk from one switch to another switch. So even though you're trunking over like a 10 gig fiber connection, at the switch, it's basically got to transcode that data to get into that single pipeline, which means you're taking all these two VLANs and squeezing it down to one fiber pipeline, which means you have to squeeze all that PTP traffic down the same pipe to get to the other switch for it to then decode and send out. It's within that trunk where we've seen the failure, where the two PTP clocks, basically they hurt each other because there's not enough space in the trunk. It goes a lot deeper than that, but that's the basic. What's that?
It's a trunk demux error between PTP.
Basically, it's a trunk demux error. Yeah. Thank you. So it's in the trunking from hardware to hardware where we've seen the problem. So it's very important that we tell people it is recommended you keep Dante separate. Here's another interesting little tidbit. We have actually seen where Dante will kill other traffic on a network that's getting to capacity. Okay, so let me explain that further. So Sarah Kohler, my applications engineer up in Minneapolis, before she left Disney, we were working on, it was Fantasmic. We were putting FreeSpeak 2 at Fantasmic in Anaheim. And they were noticing, I think it was some of their cameras were going offline. They had issues with the FreeSpeak 2 going offline. And Disney IT started digging in and they figured out that in the trunks between switches, and keep in mind, Disney's using top-of-the-line switches. So they're PTP aware, they're awesome switches for this. They started to notice that there were issues with the traffic of other devices when Dante got real busy. Then they dug in further and they figured out that Dante, I don't know if you realize this, but every device in the network has a priority. Well, Dante takes their packets and they prioritize them by one extra value over everything else. So, because they do that, but really didn't tell anybody, that meant that HelixNet, which was one level below Dante, started failing because the network goes, hey, I'm reaching capacity, I got to start dropping packets. So HelixNet went. Then IP cameras started going. And guess what else? Because we play the game right, FreeSpeak 2 started failing. Packets were failing because Dante said, I'm higher priority, and the switch then said, yep, let the Dante traffic through, start dumping these other packets. So IT went in, reflagged every single Dante source as the same priority as everybody, and everything lit up and nothing failed again. Yeah, that was a big wow for me too. Very frustrating, but lesson learned, I now know what to look for. That's why we normally say just keep Dante separate. Put a DHCP server, don't use link local, even with Dante, and just VLAN everything out after that.
So a manufacturer can prioritize their traffic,
Yes.
and a local admin can go in and deprioritize.
It's a switch thing though, and it's something that gets very complicated. You have to go into the console of that switch,
Gotcha.
and it's not easy.
And Dante, having had multiple manufacturers come back at them,
I'll be honest,
They're not going to change that protocol.
I don't know. In fact, I'll be honest, I don't even think we went after them because at the end of the day, you know, we're doing our part, we're doing it right, and our competitors are doing it right. I don't know why Dante did that. I'm not sure. And honestly, we haven't said anything to them because I just don't see the point in even trying.
And then what about upgrading to V2? If Dante would do that, then there wouldn't be 2 clocks.
You're correct.
Okay?
Now, you'd still have higher priority on Dante if they haven't changed
That's a
that,
different thing.
but having the same clock helps tremendously because that means you can have one external clock that's shared by everything. That's pretty nice.
So question on the Dante, because AES is a little, I mean, I'm used to it, but you can go into Dante and turn on AES for a device.
Yep.
So is that turning on the version 2 clock?
I think it is.
Okay.
I think it is. I can't recall. I haven't played around with that yet.
Okay.
And I know some of my team would know the answer to that, but I unfortunately don't have the answer. Sorry. But I'm pretty sure it has to.
Because you can turn that on or off. I just thought it was a different mode.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Well, but at the same time, yeah, I'm almost positive that it's basically SMPTE 2110 at that point when you switch to AS67.
We did some early work with AES67 talking to Dante equipment, and both functioned talking to each other, so the assumption would be they have to use the same clock.
I would think so. They'd have to.
They would have to. But then, you know, why not go on and turn everything on to AES 67 on the Dante network?
So you can do that and use PTP version 2, but from the last I heard, and maybe Mike knows differently than me, they were asking for like pretty large fees of like $10,000 or $20,000 to turn it on.
Oh, I see.
I think that's the last I heard about it. Anything else? Yeah.
Sorry, just for a refresher, when you're talking about not putting free speak or edge traffic through the same switch as a Dante, what kind of traffic are we talking about for the free speak? Are we talking
AS67.
audio, sending audio in from like an LQ or sorry?
No, so the LQ is not the case. LQ does IVC and other protocols. This IPT uses AS67.
Oh, so you're saying no, put the antennas on the same?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Now, you'd still want to be careful with Dante being on a HelixNet system as well, because we have seen where if the traffic on that switch gets too busy on the Dante side, the switch will start dumping traffic or bits on other streams, I guess you could say, and we would be the first to go.
I thought you said you couldn't put the antennas through switches.
Yeah, these,
The E1s.
it's the E1s that can't.
Oh, the IPTs you can't.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was missing. Okay.
Anything else? Another interesting note, now with Dante, this isn't the case because every Brooklyn chip that comes with a product that's from Audinate has its own clock. So everything gets reclocked and it's pretty good about that. That's where Audinate does a really good job. But for the rest of us in the manufacturing world that uses AS67, when we're using PTP, we are restricted by how many hops you have from the clock. Now right now the Arcadia has an has a PTP clock in it. But if you were to put an external clock in here, you could actually put that external clock like maybe connected to switch number 2 here. And all of a sudden, that means the Arcadia is only a hop away. That means this transceiver down here is within range of that clock. So you could take an external clock and put it anywhere on the network. You can even go a step further and take 2 clocks, put GPS on both of them, put them on the opposite ends of a network, and now you've got clock everywhere and everybody's happy. So that is the one nice thing about PTP using external clocks. You have some room to grow and make it better. The good thing about an external clock, by the way, is that does help you extend the system. So right now, the Arcadia can support, on average, 20 to 25 IPTs. The IPA card, for example, can do about 20 to 25. It'll do more than that, but the clock eventually will start slowing down. Because, and people have always asked, well, what the heck is the clock doing? It's really interesting to me. It's not like it's just looking at a time and going with it. When you look at a PTP and the traffic going on, you've got, let's say, the clock here, and you got an IPT here. What's interesting that engineering explained is basically the IPT goes, hey, Mr. Clock, what time is it? The clock says, oh, here's the time. IPT goes, are you sure this is the time? Is that a confirmation? Yep, that's the time. Hey, thank you. Have a nice day. And it repeats that conversation thousands of times in a second, maybe a minute. I don't know how many times it does it. So here's the problem. If I'm that main clock and I've got 30, 40, 50 IPTs talking to me, eventually you go, I can't talk to all of you at the same time, and it starts failing. So that's why the Arcadia, the Eclipse frame, they get to a point where when you get to 25 or more transceivers, you might want to look at an external clock. Any questions?
So let me ask this. So you go to a show, you get whatever comes off the truck, it's got a couple old switches, you get your Dante setup, you got everything's running through that old switch, you go into the comm they threw you, maybe they just bought the Arcadia system, you set it up, you've got your PA up, you've got everything going. Are you safe with the Dante going through the Arcadia system? And then maybe you're picking up some extra inputs from the video world or whatever. Is that going to be okay, or is that going to have a problem?
And again, this is on the same switch.
This is on a couple of switches.
If you take Dante and put it on a completely separate switch,
When you say separate switch, but you're running it through to eventually from the console, everything else, through the Arcadia, so you can set up your comms, and do all that, right?
yeah.
So you're okay doing that?
Okay, when I say a different switch, I mean literally you have a family of switches all trunked together that does comms, video, HelixNet, everything, but then maybe a family of switches that are trunked together that just does Dante.
Okay.
When I say different switches, that's the level that I'm talking about.
And it would be 2 different ports on the Arcadia.
Yeah, 2 different LAN ports. That's what I mean by that.
All right.
Anything else? All right, as far as switches go, we do have some switch recommendations. The biggest thing that, where my team comes in, we tend to sit there and say, here's what we know works and the setup. We don't aim to force you to use a specific switch. I know some manufacturers will do that, but in my opinion, that's because they're trying to hit the easy button on support. And I don't blame them one bit. There's times when I'm jealous of that. But for us, it's not fair to you to force you to use a specific switch and a specific setup. So we actually have set up not only a page on our solution finder that has a whole list of switches that we know that do and do not work for AS67, but it also in some of these cases will tell you how to set it up. So a CBS 350 from Cisco, we have a whole list of things that you click here, we even have a YouTube video. Netgear, whatever it is, we try to put the directions in there to tell you, here's what you do. So when you're out on that show, log into that switch and compare it to my notes that I have in here, because chances are you're missing something. Chances are. And it's not because somebody sucks, it's just somebody flattened the switch for the last show because they had issues. Now they didn't quite click that one last thing on quality of service, or they didn't turn on IGMP snooping, or blah, whatever. There's like 5 or 6 things you got to be concerned about. Go check this out. And by the way, use this if it's not even a ClearCom system. I don't care. Help yourself. Anything that helps you, I'm happy to provide the data. And this is probably the most important tool for you to have no matter what. I don't care if it's just for a Dante setup that you're doing and no ClearCom. Use it. Also, and this is great reading on a Saturday morning when you're sitting there with a hangover, get that AS67 guide, print it, and just sit it on the counter and read that. It'll explain the AS67 standards better than I did today. It'll get deeper into that, and then it'll even tell you some of the requirements to make it work right. We're updating this guide now because we've also learned a few things about boundary clocks and the such. So keep an eye out for our new version. I'm hoping in the next few months that my team's currently working on, because it's a never-ending story on learning about AS67. Yeah. Any questions, comments, concerns? And again, yeah, check out that solution finder. Bookmark that baby. Use it. Take advantage of it. Oh, and by the way, let me first do the legal part of this. I'll look at the camera while I do this. Clearcom does not aim to recommend one manufacturer over another or has any partnerships with network manufacturers. Every installation is unique. Please plan accordingly. However, with that said, we do recommend the Netgear switch for some of the most basic systems. So the M4250 is an example. If you guys haven't seen that, it works really, really good for the AV market. It's got profiles. So you can flatten that guy, and within 15 minutes, just go in, say, I need 2 VLANs, set up the profile for AS67, and set up the profile for this, for that. And we're adding Clearcom profiles into it. Even though the profiles are no different than other AS67, there are people in this industry that are not, I'm going to use quotation marks here, professionals like you. They're like, you know, the volunteer at the church that has to make things work. Well, they're going to look through that thing for an IPT Clearcom device. So we're adding it, even though they can just click Dante and it's the same profiles.
Oh, okay.
Check it out. I would highly recommend the Netgear stuff. It's very, very powerful. Does a good job. All right. Unless there's any more questions about networking. That took what, about an hour? Half an hour?